Hello, I'm LynFox42 and welcome to another spooky storytime video. Without further ado, let's get into it. When I was younger, me and my grandfather used to joke and say if one of us were to die, we would haunt each other and throw stuffed animals at each other. The usual stuff, I suppose. Sadly, a couple years later, he ended up passing away. And the year or two after that, things got kind of rocky and we had to move a couple times. In that time span, I ended up making a friend, someone I thought was close to me, who turned out to just be not a great person. Turns out my grandfather had the same opinion. The first move was difficult, seeing that we were going from a 4 to 5 bedroom family home down to a 2-bedroom rental. Not ideal circumstances, but we made do with what we had. In the rental, since there wasn't much space, and at the time I enjoyed having privacy when I talked to people I considered close, being that one person in particular, I turned my small closet into a little room that I could go in and sit down and just hang out on my computer. Fairy lights and all, especially the cubbies I used to collect knickknacks and little plussies. In that closet there's a little slope I could lean against or just put my feet up against as I was sitting out there. It was big enough for me to be able to spread my legs out, but not big enough for me to lay down in, if that makes any sense. So most of the time I had my back up against the wall, underneath where my clothes would hang. Now, on the wall aside from me, there was this wooden support beam that went sideways, kinda. I used to put knickknacks up there where the slope was, so it was a fair bit away from my head. And if anything were to fall off, it wouldn't hit me, which I had tested out, knocking on the wall, purposefully trying to blow things off it to see if it would hit the floor or where I was sitting. Now, I got to know it pretty well, where things would fall if they would, so I put soft things up there and heavy things to make sure they couldn't fall, or if they did, they wouldn't hurt me. One of those things was a tiny keychain stuffy. It had a beaded weight in it, so it could sit perfectly on the beam. And for added measure, I taped the back of its head and the keychain to the wall. So I was quite surprised when one night I was talking to this person, and they were poking fun at me, usual stuff, body types, etc. And suddenly something hit me near the back of my head. Now imagine my surprise when I looked to my side to see the same small keychain plushie with a beaded weight laying next to me. The angle it hit my head at was rather impossible to pull off in that tiny space, especially with my clothes dangling overhead and the angle I had taped it at. If it were to fall off the wall, it would have just hit my computer, not the back of my head, while I was up against the wall. And there was force behind the throw. It didn't just fall. And I remember telling my ex-friend about the jokes me and my grandfather had made, and that probably being him. She was over the moon, laughing about it, awing over her weird friend. But I couldn't help but remember why we made those jokes.